I remember a few years ago, I was at a marriage function of one of my relatives, and all the marriage ceremony was, completed, and then I started moving forward towards the most important section of the Indian wedding, that is food. After standing in the queue for a couple of minutes, finally my turn came, and then I filled my plate, with all the necessary and required items, and then went back to find a nice place to sit. And the moment I started eating, and even before taking the first bite of the food, someone called me from behind, saying, "Hey, Prasad." And then I thought, who's this then? It was an aunt of almost 60 years old, and she was asking like, "How are you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good, but sorry, aunt, I didn't recognize you." Then the aunt started explaining that, "Oh son, how can you forget me? I'm from the same place, even your where your spouse belong to." And then she started giving multiple cues. uh, Now that I was already hungry, and now the aunt was between me and my food. And then I was actually not able to recognize her. In the marriages, it happens that we have so many people, relatives, and practically it is not possible to know everyone. Then I started pretending like, yeah, yeah, I can recall now, I know you aunt. And then she started reverse investigation, so tell me my son's name. So I was like speechless. And from somewhere my wife appeared, and she took the control of entire conversation. So my wife immediately recognized the aunt, and took her blessings. And I was still stand still. My wife gave me a killer look, saying, "How can you recognize aunt? She even attended our wedding. She's in our albums as well, of the marriage album." Now there were two persons in between myself and the like and the food, and I had no choice, but to listen to my wife. And then my wife started explaining, the relationship, like she's my mother's father's younger sister's cousin and all. So my wife's already spent almost 5 minutes explaining all the relationship diagram. And this time I decided to act smart, and I pretended like, yeah, yeah, now I recognize you, auntie. Sorry, I didn't recognize in the first go. Yeah, but it is nice and great to meet you. uh, and I thanked her. And so finally, my wife got convinced that now I know everything, and she left, aunt left. And then I started enjoying my food finally. And that day when I came back, at home, I started realizing, there is some connection between this human relationship and the traceability in manufacturing. How it is interconnected, let's say in this video. So basically, this traceability word has actually, it's a combination of two different words, trace plus ability, that's traceability. So prima facie, there are two types in the traceability. One is chain traceability and another is internal traceability. We will start with the deep dive on the internal traceability. The chain traceability is the ability to track the movement of a product or ingredient through the entire supply chain, from a raw material to finished good. And it also involves the collecting and sharing the data about the product at each and every stage throughout the supply chain, such as origin, processing history, and the location. Let's take an example of the car manufacturing process. Uh, Now, as you know, in a car manufacturing company, they will be having multiple suppliers or vendors to supply different types of automotive parts. Now, in this example, let's start with the forging. At this stage, the forging supplier will manufacture the raw parts or unfinished parts, and then those parts will be sent to the another supplier for machining operations. Then those finished parts will be again sent to the car manufacturing company, wherein the assembly process will take place. Once the car is fully assembled and tested, it will be sent to the dealer, and then consumer will finally buy from the dealer. So this is an example of the chain traceability, wherein there are multiple vendors and suppliers are involved into the entire manufacturing process of one product. Now let's take an example that if a consumer reports an issue with the engine, then the customer will inform to the dealer or a service network that hey, I have an issue with the engine performance. Then the company will investigate the root cause of the engine performance, and then if they found out that one of the supplier who has supplied those spare parts is having issue with the material, then they will inform to that supplier, and the supplier will investigate that what went wrong in the process. So this all takes place with the help of a serial number or part number, which we will soon discuss about. Internal traceability is the ability to track a movement of a product or ingredient within a single company or organization. This may include tracking the movement of the products through the manufacturing process or tracking the movement of inventory through a warehouse, but all this happens within the same company. Now again, let's take an example of a car manufacturing company wherein they want to perform the machining operation on the crankshaft. Now there will be manufacturing process of drilling, grinding, heating, and now for that we want to enable the traceability on this line. So how do we do that? Well, for that, first of all, at the beginning of the station, we need to provide an identity to the crankshaft. And in order to provide the identity, we would need to have a laser marker along with the vision camera, which can read and store the data. Similarly, at every operation, we would need to install a barcode reader or a vision camera, or if RFID if the process needs, and log the process data along with. In this example, once the drilling operation is completed, we log the data against the specific part serial number. So this data can be operation number, let's say in this example, operation number 10, operation is drilling, the status completed, not completed, quality, good, bad, along with the date at time of manufacturing. This entire process is called as a internal traceability. So in this process, in case if there is any issue occurs with respect to a specific part or quality, the organization has the ability to trace back the root cause within the manufacturing line itself. There is an important concept in the traceability, which is trace forward and trace backward. So what is trace forward? Let's say a car manufacturing company has found out that there is an issue in the existing process, and they realize that some of the car shipment has been already done and it is with the dealers or even with the consumers. So they are now trying to trace forward to analyze the impact. Recalls in the car manufacturing company is the good example of trace forward. You might have heard many times like a specific car manufacturer recalls X number of cars to repair the defect. So that's an example of trace forward. So trace backward means, let's say multiple consumers starts reporting a similar kind of issue for the similar type of car brand or car type. So in this process, the company now can trace back in the process and analyze that which batch these cars are from, so that they can trace back in the past and identify the root cause of the issue. So now you know how we learn more about traceability. So once we meet the new peoples, new relatives, and we have no trace, where they have come from, and then we apply the principles of traceability there to know their roots and their connections. And also traceability is such a vast topic, and we have just covered the very basics. So do let me know if you like this analogy, and if you are interested to hear more about advanced traceability, we can cover that in the next section of video. And there is always someone who is always there to teach you about traceability. You know who I'm talking about. It's wife. No, it's aunt. I mean, it's both.